So, you know, at the end of the day, it was just a suggestion of mine that we strike it. If you choose to say no, then you choose to say no. But I just gave you the MGL on that.
Yeah, so 268, that's a conflict of interest laws, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so you're asking us not to have a vote on it, but yet we're the appointing authority for all boards. And I'm just thinking out loud here. So legally, we're responsible for every one of the members on that board. So if we don't have a vote on it, does that create us a legal problem?
No, because it doesn't create a legal problem, because right here the MGL resolves that.
Yeah, I'd have to read it more.
So the MGL resolves that, and this is not something I have not presented to the chair, town administrator, and Ms. Campanella. I would rather have had it resolved before we got to this space, and all I'm making now is a suggestion. That's all I'm making, and it doesn't say that any one of us don't have to be in a room. Now, what you may be arguing with is that I want to vote in that room, and I can't really see a person fighting to be in that room to just have a vote when the ultimate vote comes here anyway.
Right. I was going to say the end all be all vote is here anyway, but we'll present our recommendations.
Right. Ms. Campanella?
So you don't see a purpose for us?
Ms. Campanella is going to speak now.
Madam Chair, I think DeLuca had already looked into it once. I think whatever his ruling was or that he came into, because I know that whole MGL thing is a very long one, and then it goes in and it separates. If this happens, if that happens, if this was created this way, if this was created that way. So why don't we get an actual whole rundown of what that actual MGL is?
I was just going to suggest
Yes. What I would
that opinion specific.
What I would recommend, because I can't recall correctly, or maybe I can. I thought that this was right because it was part of the composition of the membership. Yeah. So that's why it was okay. We would not be able to have it composed and then appoint someone to it from this board. So I thought that that's what the determination was. But how about we table this till we get the clarification?
My suggestion would be is this, Madam Chair, is that we can vote on the charge, and if we have to come back. If we have to come back to it, I do not want to table them being able to do their great work, because a lot of what I am mentioning today could have already been settled, but I see that it wasn't, and I would rather move forward. But I just want to put it on the record that right now in the composition, if you're talking about composition, I'm not even saying anything's wrong with the composition. What I'm saying is that the select board cannot appoint itself to the board, and if you're saying that they can, you're saying that they have a vote on the board. And my reading of the MGL, and you can read it yourself. Matter of fact, I've sent it to you and others, but.
Right, and we did have town council review it, and like I said, I can't recall exactly what it was, but it was approved that this was done correctly. So until we can provide what the...
I think the matter settled around two selectmen being the board at the time, so I will get...
So if everyone's more comfortable with bringing back town council's reply to that, that is absolutely fine. But that's why it was solved to me, because town council came back and said there's
I wouldn't be saying anything if it was solved.
So to clarify, we're going to continue with the vote, but town council is going to look at it and come back.
It depends. I want to know.
Okay.
As it relates to the composition.
Right.
But in the overall charge of it, I believe we should be able to move forward with the...
That's for the board to decide. So what do you guys think?
Tomorrow we'll be trying to prioritize it, so it would be in the best interest of us for us to be able to take at least that charge and be able to move forward with it.
Well, we had talked about the charge was the residents that you're doing for your voting right now. We had discussed that before. Mr. Hanley and I had sat down with Nakia, and I can't remember who else it was.
Your secretary.
Because they had questions about Trinidad.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That was a while ago.
Right.
That
and
was like
that
3 months ago.
Correct. And we discussed that it was your voting members that you had.
Yes, but I'm just talking
Right.
about the duties of the charge. So
The
like
duties of the charge,
our
the
policies and
changes that you
procedures
just-
part is like the newest part. I would
So-
like that approved so that we can prioritize those parts. So after the charge is approved, we would go to prioritize what our first, what we would be tackling first as a committee. So we need to prioritize our charge, so we need it to be approved.
Can I ask you this as well? So on the original charge that was approved, and we had that discussion, it was about finding out the makeup of the town. Has anybody gone and gotten what the makeup of the town is?
We are going to
move forward?
prioritize the charge when it is
Okay.
approved. So that
Okay, but
if the committee decides that that's the first thing that they want to do, or if the committee decides that that's what the first thing 2 people are going to do, then that's where we will start.
So I guess my confusion is the committee already had their charge when you were formed,
The
right?
committee members
This
and
one that
myself,
you guys,
but it wasn't approved. It was always a draft. So until I'm standing here now, that document has been a draft.
okay.
And so
Okay.
we would like it to not be a draft anymore so that when we, prioritize and pick and choose something and move forward with it, we're not back here and like, oh, well, we're not really sure about that part of it. We would like to just move forward with being able to do our due diligence.
So Madam Chair,
Yes.
if that's the case and they were never formed then as a committee formally, then I'm going to assume if we're going to say that this charge that we worked hard on is not technically a charge, we've created a committee to take something that wasn't a charge to make their own charge,
No, when you met with us, I'm sorry, she was talking to you.
right? That's, I guess, was the clarification. Did we not create the committee? I could have sworn we had voted on accepting this. We had made the changes on adding the other residents. We had this whole thing. We moved it forward. We set up a committee. We set up a date that they met. We had tasked them with finding out the composition of the town. When we talked to Nikki and Trinidad, it was about,
Nikki actually has her hand raised, so.
okay, about the birthday celebration I talked with them about, on how great it would be to show how diverse the town has become from then to now, because that was something that was time sensitive.
If you read our meeting minutes, you'll see that they did report back on that and what we discussed, because you weren't there.
Okay, right. Well, I'm just saying what I know.
I understand.
Okay, I'm not having an argument. I'm
I don't
making
want to argue with you.
statements.
I understand.
Correct.
I'm
So
clarifying.
what I'm saying is, if I'm going to be told now that this was never a real charge and draft, did we set up a committee to make up their own charge and draft from what the committee made as a charge and draft? So if we're going to go that route, then I would like to vote on the original charge that was drafted and written,
Can Nikki
because
speak,
this
please?
is what we were talking about. Or we don't vote on anything, we get clarification and find out when and what everything was done.
Okay. All right. Let's hear from Ms. Miller.
Hello, this is Nakia. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. We did have a conversation, but as you recalled, we also received a draft of this charge to come back and have a discussion with the select board on changes. Because when we received the draft of the charge, we indicated that there was languages in there for marginalized groups would have been very uncomfortable with, which was one of the main, and being a person from one of those marginalized groups, I will tell you personally, the charge that you came up with was very basic. So we took due measures to make sure that we were beyond being inclusive with the new charge to include a language not only that was more or less marginalized, but to make sure that we wanted to include everyone from the town of Holbrook. And the reason why we have not done any work in regards to getting a composition within Holbrook to see our demographic population is because the charge was not finalized.
I think I'm confused where it wasn't inclusive for everybody, because it stated this includes all residents, visitors, and persons passing through, or it states the town of Holbrook embraces the values of inclusive. It defines actively pursuing goals of, integrating, you had said was a word you didn't think was appropriate. Engaging and welcoming all persons regardless of race, color, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, the list goes on and on. We aspire to be a community of diversity and inclusion. But we get rid of some of those things. We don't want to be a town that embraces. We aspire to recognize contributions. When I have that in here about recognizing the contributions that everybody has, I guess I'm confused at which words, or is it you just wanted to shorten it up?
Sorry, not to cut you off. So why do you feel that your charge is more inclusive than the charge that the board came up with?
I'm just asking which words were not appropriate, or why we would
not
get.
That they're inappropriate. They're just not words that I would actually use to say this is for diversity, equity, and inclusion for the community. And also, I feel like there was words in there that were being exclusive of including gender and gender orientation. For example, the examples that Priscilla gave.
Yeah, I guess I'm confused at which ones were excluding somebody. So the gender identity and or expression should be together because it's more fluid, is what you were saying, because those aren't separate. Okay. Instead of being separate. Gender identity and gender expression are not separate. It should be together. Mr. Watkins.
Madam Chair, one of the great things about diversity and inclusion is when you have a group of people who are cross-culture, who creates a document, and they say that everyone in that room comes to a consensus and says this is good for you even have an example to work from those groups of people. Even when maybe a select board member themselves might have wrote it by themselves or with another person, but then you give a template, you give a springboard to jump off from. I think that's a great document. You know, that we had people or residents from our town who created what a lot of psychologists call a co-culture environment, and they're ready to do work. I think at this present time, all of the work they did, along with the work that you did, they all meld that together, and they found some words that was more inclusive, including the words that you have provided. I think we have a great document that we can move forward on. It shouldn't be this document or that document. It seems to me that they meld the original document into this document with a lot of other viewpoints from the residents of Holbrook. I think we have, I wouldn't say an excellent document, but I would say we have a great document to start from, because as the chairperson from the Diversity Committee stated, this is a living and breathing document. As time goes on, as the town reshapes itself, this document will live and breathe with it. So, you know, that's my point on it. I think we should move forward with their charge.
And like I said, all the meeting minutes are available on the website. All of our meetings are on HCAM. If there's any questions from past meetings that you may have about the process, it's there for the watching. Our meeting is tomorrow as well. It will be Zoom only, but like I said, the link will be provided. We've tried to make it as transparent as possible.
Great work, Campanella. Great work to the diversity team. I think everybody did their excellent and did their best. Amy has a,
I still want clarification on whether or not that other one was voted in.
I think that the issue here is that we believe that we voted this charge in, and over the last few months, that this should have been the part that was prioritized. And while I said, and I still stand that I like the addition to the charge, if over these past few months, what we initially, like, this board came together because we wanted to start this, we needed to get this off the ground. This was very important to the town, and there was a specific piece we wanted to start with and then move on to these other things. So if there's concern that this whole time we thought it was being worked on and it wasn't, I think that's the concern.
I mean,
I understand that concern,
Hold on, Ms. Campbell.
but in our meeting minutes and in the meetings, if people attended, they would have seen the work that has been being done. So again, I'm up here retroactively trying to explain the work that has been done for the past 4 or 5 months.
So
Can Amy speak?
over this past few months, is the priority being changing the charge?
No, the priorities are coming after the charge is finalized. So then we prioritize the parts.
But that's what I mean. So over the last 4 or 5 months,
We've been trying to get our meetings together, so we need our members. When we started, it was a group of residents who were coming in here and were demanding change. You guys obviously appointed us, and that's what we've been doing. So we've been getting members. We've been having meetings with the school. Like I said, all of this is available on the website. This is the work that we have been doing. We've been working on the charge to make sure that it is an inclusive document and that it makes sense to us and to the community members that we are going to be serving.
and I appreciate that everything's on the website and that anyone can view this, but I hope you do understand there's no way I could possibly make sure that I was to view all boards, committees, minutes, and meetings. I couldn't possibly get that done. So I need that feedback from chairs and heads of departments, because there's no way we could all possibly be able to see all of this. It's just too much.
Can Amy add?
Yes,
please?
Ms. Pierce.
I just want to make sure this is working. Can you hear me? Yes. Sorry, it's a little bit different this time. So when we were working on the charge, we were under the advisement of Mr. Hanley, because he, as far as we know, is steps in when Pam can't be there as a representative of the Board of Selectmen. And he was there when we were working on these things, and we were never told to stop, or that it wasn't. We were always under the advisement that this was part of what we were supposed to be doing, was to be working on the charge.
So what you guys are saying basically is you were all under the impression that this was continued. This was a draft the entire time.
Exactly, like it was a draft, and then we were supposed to build on that draft.
Just because my name was mentioned,
Yeah.
meeting, you were told that the charge was the charge of the committee. And we would never create a committee without a charge. We would not create a committee without direction. So a charge was given, a meeting was had to explain the charge, and that there would not be an amendment right now to the charge until you began the work of the original charge. It was never in draft form for you to reconsider.
So I believe that is on recording, and the document that we have says draft right on it.
See, because Emily, unfortunately, who's my assistant, part of your committee, and I specifically remember telling her that that was not the charge of the committee. The charge of the committee was voted on here, and I would just ask that I verify that to make sure that was the case, because a vote was taken and made on the presentation that was given on the composition of the board, and we would never create a committee without a charge. So let me verify that.
So unfortunately, I think at this point, I think we need to put this off to the 16th until we can get clarification, and then we can take it from there with the changes on the charge. What do you guys think?
Madam Chair.
So will
Yes.
we have representation tomorrow from the board, from either Greg or Pam, who are supposed to be guiding us, as Greg told us he would, to go forward with this? Or we just, we've been asking for guidance through email and verbally and, kind of a kick down when we've done all this work and, just trying to find out what next steps are.
Well, I think, Amy, on that meeting that I had with everyone that first time, where you had discussed that you wanted to change the charge the first time because of you wanted to have stronger words. We had discussed in that meeting how we wanted, the charge was to find out first, what were the needs of Holbrook? What did Holbrook comprise of for its residents? And to move forward from there. And there was a question that came forward, and we met with the two, and we had a happy discussion about how important it would be for the 150th birthday, because that was a big thing that the town was going to be celebrating, to show how diverse Holbrook has come in the 150 years, and to show and highlight the accomplishments of the diversity of this town. Am I wrong for assuming that would go back to the rest of the diversity committee to say, hey, look, we can do a great thing here in highlighting the diversity of the town and highlighting its population?
We did discuss that at the meeting. I don't know the exact date, but after you spoke with Trinidad and Ikea, in the meeting minutes and in the recording, we did have a discussion about what you guys talked about. And we talked about trying to find when the meetings were for the 150th celebration. They're not on the town website. They were on Facebook. We're all working. I need stuff to be on the calendar so that I can plan to go, other people can plan to go. Obviously, we're all busy. We all, some of us have kids. I can't be running around looking for dates for important committees. And it wasn't posted. I didn't see any, I don't know what happened at the meetings, other than word of mouth, maybe from people who were there. So in that discussion, we talked about following up and finding out when the meetings were. And then Trinidad may have reached out to, I believe, Mr. Benby. So, okay. But I don't, like I said, I don't know when the meetings were. So we looked for them. We had brought it up. I believe I sent an email about it as well, because, I can't be on Facebook looking for meetings for the town,
Madam Chair, I work for a civil rights organization, and I can tell you that diversity and inclusion is about diversity of thought. And what I've seen going back and forth here is that we as the select board is going to say, we don't want diversity of thought. We want you to do what I told you to do. And I'm not going to vote on this because I told you to do something, you didn't do it. And we're talking to volunteers. We're talking to the residents of our town. We're talking to women, for the most part, who have children who have been working diligently at putting together a diverse product. That's the diversity and inclusion. That is what we're asking people. We're really saying the reason why we need to have a diversity and inclusion committee, because some of us on this side of the table are asking questions, rightfully so. I'm going to ask a question. Is that the way to say that? I don't want to offend nobody. Those sort of conversations were just happening right here. And then the conversation that goes back and forth, why you didn't use my word versus your word, and those words are from 5 or 6 different people. So why is your word more powerful than their word?
Madam Chair.
And I am just saying that this is the reason why we have set up a diversity and inclusion committee, allowed a committee to move forward with their work. The priority, as she said, was coming after we accept this charge, and I don't see anything that is going to have any of us locked up, maimed, our houses burned down, or anything like that, that you allow the charge to go forward, and then you can say the first priority is to go and see, get the number of the town.
Right. But that would also be what you guys chose us to do, is to make this decision.
So if I don't see nothing wrong with establishing their charge and allowing them to go and do the priorities that you wish to have done, Chair. Because we don't need to go back and forth and say, I didn't say this and I didn't say that, and then we're getting into the space of where we don't want to be.
Madam Chair,
Ms. Campanella.
I'd like to have a discussion with Mr. Watkins, because I thought the whole point of this meeting, Mr. Watkins, was to have a discussion. For you to make the insinuating remark that I'm saying why you didn't use my word, I would like to understand, because diversity and inclusion is understanding your side and my side, correct? And so therefore, I would like to understand, why is there a separation between that? Because diversity and inclusion should help teach me or anybody else that. So to insinuate that my questions would have some kind of undertone to them is, I don't even know if offensive is the word I want to use, or the way, what you're insinuating about me. Okay? I saw that we needed this long before everybody in this room that was on that diversity committee decided to sit down with Emily. I had this discussion. I talked with the board about it. So to insinuate that I'm trying to take something away from them is a little bit much, okay? To say that they're allowed to, the committee is set up by this board. This board directs the committee. So yes, when I sat in that room with everybody and you spoke of words, sure, we had that discussion. You wanted to change words? I would like to understand why. That's all. My only question, okay? Now, the birthday celebration, to me, this was already voted on, okay? Why isn't the birthday celebration moved forward? This, that, and the other thing, whatever. To insinuate when I ask questions is putting forth that I'm trying to put down a group or to not let this go forward is I can't even fathom that.
Chair,
My thing is, just let me finish for one moment. You bring about whether or not this was voted on or not, we need to move forward, yet you bring up MGLs to me and everything else about doing wrong. Before I move forward to say we're going to go with this one because this one or that, I want to make sure that everything is done correctly. So that's what I'm going to say to that. It's not upholding them of doing anything. They could have been working on all those different projects this whole entire time because there was something in writing to them of what it was.
We were.
Well,
You look at the meetings and attended them
Madam Chair,
and read the minutes, then you would
Madam Chair, I just want to respond to my colleague on the end there, and we can replay back the tape from HCAM. But when you ask a question, and then behind that question you say, I'm not going to do this or that, then it sets up an adversarial position, like if you're not doing what I say do, because the one thing you did was, the example is, this is what we did and this was that and this was this.
Because I'm curious.
But the true question is whether or not is this committee diverse enough to do diversity work, which they are. We put them together. Whether or not that we can move this charge forward, and whatever priorities you may have, or I won't say you, I'll say the board, whatever charge we have in terms of priorities from that point, we move forward on. We're not doing this with any other committee. We're not doing this with any other committee. And I understand because this is the first time we had a diversity and inclusion committee, and we're all learning this process. But let's not hold up good work that you even yourself said, hey, this is my brainchild. I thought of this before anyone came along. And I'm supporting what you're saying. Let's move this forward. Let's get them to do the priority work that you wish for them to do, and let's not get hung up. As I said, even with the MGL, I'm not going to get hung up on that, right? I made a suggestion, and I even said, hey, if you take it, you take it. You don't. Let's move on. I don't want to. I could say I want to hold this up because of that. No. Let's move this process forward. If we need to have any sort of reports from them, which they're going to come back in their first quarter, we can get the reports from them on what the priorities was done during that time, and we can say, hey, okay, you're on point, or you say you need to change course.
I will say that. Oh, go ahead, PJ.
As a citizen, I've been all the other citizens allowed to speak.
You should come to the podium.
Aren't you on the
Come on up,
committee?
Mr. Duggan.
I'm not on the diversity committee.
Oh yeah, you get me on.
Patrick Duggan, Precinct 4. I'd like to make a couple comments on this, and if you all recall, I was here last time to speak about this as a citizen, and Amy took my time. A different story. If you remember when I spoke about this the last time, one of the times I talked about no one's listening to each other again. Okay, the couple things that I've been good not jumping up here, because a couple things I think, I don't want to say misinformation, but it wasn't worthy enough or material to discuss about. I think the committee's getting back both each other. That's not the point. The point was, I was here. I know we voted on charge. You gave the charge, and 3 times, I think I counted, we did discuss the things you had in your priorities. And it's out there in the minutes. We just said, get minutes out there. My minutes are out there. As we know, I think we're the only committees have minutes out there every week, including the select board. So all you think you're talking about, great, but we're talking about moving forward. I do not understand why, if they had the charge wrapper up, they gave you a new charge. I'm going to defer all that comment to Mr. Watkins, speaks better than I do. Do you like what they said? Do you like the new charge? Then move forward and they have their priorities. That does not mean they did not work on that. I also do not want, and this is going to get real personal now, is that I don't want to hear how busy everybody else is. This is my 4th meeting of the week for the town. I have my own.
Mr. Duggan, you're getting a
Sorry.
little carried away. Thank you.
I apologize. 4th meeting of the week for the town. I have another one tomorrow. Glad to do it. But if everybody's busy, then don't volunteer or don't go get elected. So that is an excuse that I have said at town meetings before. The employees get paid to work hard. Don't tell me you work hard at your job. You ask to be select board, it's going to be tough. I'm on my job. It's tough for me. So we need to just move forward. And if you want to learn about diversity and inclusion and what words are good, now I don't think it's a time to take the town and the select board to discuss it. You gave him a charge. I agree with Mr. Watkins. I've been coming to a lot of these meetings. There are boards out there that aren't doing anything that I never hear them talk about. And this board has gone through a lot. I come up here and screamed for you a chair to say, let's move forward. I realize this is your brainchild. It took a year to get something that was so important up here. And now we're sitting debating what word. Get the charge. If you agree with it, move forward. Last comment, separate. I do think, Mr. Watkins, the permanent select board has a selectman on it in the past, so I think there might be an exception. Thank you, Lindsay. I apologize.
And I also think this is about impact versus intent. So you can say something and have an intention behind it, but it can impact me differently. And I'm willing to have the discussion about this, obviously. Like PJ said, we've been talking about this at length. Okay? I'm going to be very honest. I do feel scrutinized. I am constantly up here. I am constantly being transparent, emailing people, asking them to be involved in this process. I don't like coming up and hearing my committee being talked about from a deficit. From you're not doing this, why wasn't this done? And I understand that those are questions you have to ask, but the impact may be different from what you're intending. That's all I'm saying. Because we have been doing wonderful work with people who are volunteers, like PJ said. I have a full-time job and a kid like everybody else. And I go to the school meetings. I have Zooms after work. I'm here right now while my daughter is being put to bed. And it shouldn't take a man to say it. I'm sorry. So with that, I'm done. You may make your decision.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to accept the changes to the Diversity and Inclusion Committee charge as presented.
Do we have a second? Okay, I'll second it. Second. All those in favor by roll call vote.
Watkins, yes.
Mr. Riley?
Nope.
Mr. Campanella?
I'm gonna abstain from it. No.
Lindsay, yes. The motion does not carry.
2-1.
She abstained and he no.
Is she abstained?
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
Abstain.
Okay, so that passes?
So it passed. It passed.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, I'm a little disturbed that I wanted to have a discussion, whatever, and I asked questions and it offended everybody. Sorry about that, okay?
Why don't you come to a meeting and then we can talk about
Like you said, I also do work, and the nights you have your meetings, like I said before, I work all those.
be so combative.
I'm not trying to be combative.
We're not gonna do this. We're not gonna do this.
I'm just saying.
We're not gonna do this.
Trying to. Okay.
We're gonna move on to agenda item